Hey guys, and welcome to the Invar Technologies Podcast, a podcast where we interview top-level executives inside leading and growing companies in the beverage space. We're excited to have our guest today, Shane Rietow. We'll be diving into his story, a little bit about what his company does, and some engaging insights into the industry. So I'll go ahead and just kick it off to you, Shane. If you could just introduce yourself, why don't you just tell a quick snippet of your story and your background prior to working at Momentum Beverage Team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career pretty young. I was in high school, and Arizona Iced Tea was a brand just launching my senior year of high school. And they were looking for field sales reps for the summer, and that was really my first job ever. Now it's a global brand, but before then, no one knew of that brand. So I spent many days just selling up and down the street, showing people the big can. And ended up spending 10 years there. So got to watch that brand grow significantly. Moved to New York for 2 years where the brand was established, where I did some training and stuff for our internal distributor there. And then from there, I moved on to a company that was still in its infancy at the time, Red Bull. Clearly everybody knows Red Bull now, but
Yeah.
Similar. I mean, it had a little bit of a runway, I think about 2 years when I started there, but we were still introducing and growing that brand, and spent a few years there. And then met a gentleman by the name of Joe Heron from South Africa, and he was starting a company called Nutrisoda. Way back in the day, some people my age might remember it. It had like a little airplane logo on it, and it was meant for travelers. It was a functional soda, like immune and calm, and it was kind of built through airport travel. And I joined that company to run sales for him. And then we actually sold that company to Pepsi Americas pretty quick. We started the company out of Minnesota, and I think we're about a year and a half. And Pepsi Americas was out of Minnesota, and they bought the company. So we ran that as a subsidiary within Pepsi Americas. And then he and I were kind of just sitting around on a couch one day talking about cider and how America is starting to drink more cider, but there just wasn't a lot out there at the time. There was Hornsby and Woodchuck and Magners, and it was all sticky and sweet. From there, that idea turned into a company called Crispin Cider. It was a non-sweet, all-natural over ice, which traditionally ciders drank over ice in Europe, where ciders were huge and still are. And we started that from scratch, 0 cases, found a cidery in California, partnered with them and ended up purchasing them and merging as a company. And then just started opening states and got to a place where I think I had 34 salespeople on the team. We were in 45 states. That took us about 5 years. We were approached by Miller Coors to purchase our company. It was 3 days before Christmas. And we kind of got the brand as big as it can go. We were starting to find some challenges with our cidery, so the timing was perfect. And it was the first really big purchase of Miller Coors. And within that, I had to stay there 2 years along with Joe. My whole sales team came in, and we ran that within Miller Coors for a year. And then Miller Coors basically took that brand over. My team dispersed and took jobs at Miller Coors, and I had left. And Joe had another idea for brandy, which again was similar to cider. People were starting to drink more brandy, but a lot of it was traditional. And we built a distillery down in Louisville, Kentucky, which took probably about a year and a half, 2 years. I moved to Louisville, Kentucky from Chicago and spent 9 years down in Louisville. We built that brand again from scratch, built out a sales team. I had about 25 salespeople on the team. We were in about 45 states in a very short time. And then we're approached by Constellation, which owns Corona, Modelo, and they purchased Copper and Kings. So it was kind of a good 3 companies. I think everybody tries to build a company to sell it, and they think it's easier than it is. And I think there's a lot that plays into it. And luck is one. kind of punching above your weight, making your brand look bigger than it may be. And that's, when you're in 45 states, you look bigger maybe than you are, and you look like you've been around longer than you are. And Joe was great at that marketing piece, and I was always great at the sales piece. And then we parted ways, and I moved to Colorado, where my friend owned a distributor in Illinois, Colorado, and Wisconsin called Momentum Beverage. We do spirits and wine. His family's been in distributor network their whole life. They actually sold their distributor Southern Glazers, which was the first big purchase of a distributor in the industry back then. So we sell spirits and wine throughout the whole state of Colorado, Illinois, and Wisconsin. I run a sales team that covers the state here.
I think I lost you there, Shane. Are you still there?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had another question.
No, the connection went out, so it came back in and it went back out. So I didn't know if you were done talking. But we'll go ahead and cut that.
Yep.
But yeah, it seems like you obviously have such an extensive background, and I love to kind of hear how you hopped around. I mean, you talked a little bit about Arizona iced tea and then Red Bull, and then kind of have so much experience within the beverage industry itself. What was it about the industry that you really liked and kind of wanted to stay in once you kind of had that first run in with Arizona tea? As in high school, was it just you just knew that this was going to be the industry that you wanted to just stay in?
Not really. I mean, I went to college for environmental science and geography, and I kept working throughout the summers when I went back home, and then when I graduated and got a job, I was doing geographical mapping, and it just didn't pay. I was making so much more money back, in high school than I was making in the job I actually went to college for. So I just stayed on, and I really loved, I always liked talking to people. Sales was really just kind of came natural to me. I like the freedom, of being out there and not just behind a desk all the time. I mean, I was fortunate enough just to be on a run with very successful companies. They all had a really good platform. But again, when you're starting something out from scratch, which a lot of companies still do, I mean, we distribute a lot. Your expectations are so high. But I think people think it's easier to do than it is, and it just isn't. And I've got to touch myself in like non-alc spirits, beer, wine, really everything across the board. And I just really enjoyed starting something from nothing and watching it build. But again, it's hard to watch, let something go as well. Each time we sold our companies, like you're so emotionally attached to it.
Yeah.
It's hard. And then, yeah. And like to go do it again, it's like, do I really want to do that again? And us doing it 3 times was just like, we were really exhausted. And I traveled so much. I mean, I was on a plane every week. I missed my boys growing up, and now being home every day, like I value more. I value that. It's not all about money. It's I think even when I hire people in my company, it's like what really motivates you, and is money? Is it is it culture? Is it opportunity? I always ask those questions, and nowadays it's a lot money, money, money. And I think when I was young, it was clearly money for me. But as you get older, I think you value like job security for sure. And not every job's secure, and a lot of people want to jump around jobs. I was very loyal. Like I ran it till I possibly could run it out, or we sold the company. So it feels good to just be in a spot and have a team and not be jumping on a plane all the time.
Definitely, yeah. It's cool to see the progression, right, and kind of how everything turns out in life, and how you have those experiences that mold you into who you are. You've obviously been in the industry for quite a while, and you've seen a lot of things, probably come and go. I'm curious as to what your take is on the current market and kind of current trends that you're currently noticing in the beverage space.
Yeah. So last year was one of the most challenging years across the country in spirits, wine, and beer. Beer was kind of making its way there because it got so saturated. And, you go into a liquor store right now, it's like there's so many choices. And there's just bad beer out there because there's so many people making beer. No one's really loyal to a brand anymore on beer. Spirits, you have that age gap now where like the Jim Beams and the Jack Daniels of the world, like those people are fading away and they're looking to explore like new spirits and craft spirits. And craft spirits it turned into what beer was, over the last 10 years. Everybody wanted to get into it. Some guys would go drink like a gin at home and then they started gin distillery and it got oversaturated as well. So over the last few years, you've seen a lot of distilleries close. But what we've seen, COVID did two things. It drew people to spend more money and explore in spirits that they never have before. They had the disposable income. But now what we're seeing coming out of COVID is so many people exhausted themselves on bourbon and whiskey, which bourbon and whiskey is still big, but it's going the wrong way now. Your tequilas and any agave spirit is kind of like where bourbon was 6 years, 7 years ago. Also, a lot of people are just stockpiled on bourbons and spirits in general from COVID. So we're seeing buying trends completely shift. People, aren't willing now to spend $70, $80 on a really nice bourbon. They're kind of going back to like the traditional or what they knew. So I think across the board from just suppliers that we have and distributors in general across the country had a really bad year. Some would tout the worst year in the last 10 years, especially here in Colorado. Colorado is it's an unusual state. Everybody wants to be here there with their brand because of the amount of travel. Up in the mountains, we have billionaires, not millionaires visiting. Everybody wants their brands there. But this state particular last year passed a law where you could buy wine and grocery. And it changed the whole landscape across Colorado. Colorado's always been known for an independent retailer, grassroots. And now that you could buy wine and beer, which beer, I think that law passed about 4 years ago, you basically taken away the amount of traffic going to that local, spirits store. And they're feeling the pain. I mean, they say we're going to have about 400 stores close here by the end of March, which is a big deal to the economy. So I think like the implications of that law, I don't feel were really seen when it passed, and it barely passed. And if spirits ever passes, if that law ever goes up again, because that one did not, it would put a lot of people out of business in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and I think there's like even the trend that I was talking with someone about, kind of how our generation, the generation, the new 21 to 30-year-olds, they tend to drink less alcohol as well. Like that's kind of the way that we're seeing, the generation develop. But obviously that's like every single market. There's troughs and there's ups and there's downs, and then it kind of comes back around, right? So it's I did want to ask you a little bit. I know you touched on, Momentum Beverage Team and kind of what you guys are doing over there. If you can maybe just, tell a little bit about some of the main products that you guys really offer and kind of the things that you do at Momentum Beverage Team. And then a follow-up to that was where you really think, people get that unique value from being with you guys.
Well, I got a good taste of like what a big company is like at Miller Coors. And I've always been with startup small companies, and I've always, ran most of them. There is something to be said with that 1 degree separation where you can always have your boss's ear. It really is more like family. I like being around my team. I like hanging out with my team, and I'm worried, I want to make sure that we're here for a long time. When you get into some bigger companies, it's sometimes you feel like a number. It's like you're just trying to get up to that next job instead of going deep. And, a lot of people in bigger companies just want to go wide. And, that I've always valued. And I think it's important. And I think, when you have smaller distributors like us, trying to compete with the bigger ones, and we're seeing the bigger ones struggle here culturally as well, with brands moving around. But also the thing with us, it's like every brand's important for us. And that's not really the case with some of the bigger distributors. They have that, 4 or 5 big brands that keep the lights on. Like, we really have to pay attention to everything. And everybody really has to like pull their weight. Like, if one person on our team isn't doing the job, it really affects everybody. Because we are small.
Mhm.
So with that, I think comes maybe a little more pressure and stress. But at the end of the day, like, I try to tell my team, like we got to have fun. Like, this is a fun job, selling, spirits and wine, and it is somewhat recession proof. That's obviously, beat the test of time on that. But also, as you said earlier, like, especially here in Colorado, like, the younger generation they are getting away from it. But now you have this huge resurgence of like THC drinks and like these new Delta 9 drinks. And, so people are entering that category to capture that younger generation, because
Mhm.
definitely that older generation is drinking less. Here, like, non-elks have become a huge part of the business across the country. Colorado is actually the number 2 behind California in non-elk sales. So we've recently launched a lot of non-alcoholic brands. In January and February are 2 of the big coming out months for those brands. So we are seeing a shift. I mean, there's almost $19 million of non-elk sold in Colorado alone. That's a huge number. So you have to play in that space as well. You kind of feel like you're pushing and pulling against each other. You're selling alcohol, you're selling non-alc, trying to capture everybody in these different categories. But people are coming back. Like, we're seeing different trends. But just the challenge is, like, there's just no loyalty to a lot of brands. So
Mhm.
I think these brands start, and I see them. They're startups and they're excited, and like, and I was one of those people. That's why I love being on this side, because I was always the supplier dealing with the distributor. Now I'm hearing all the suppliers like, you got to sell more, you got to sell more. And I think back, I'm like, God, was I like that with my distributors? Like, did people not like me, or like, uh, so I'm very sensitive to our suppliers, because I just understand the challenges of it, the complexity, and like the emotional attachment to your brand. Like,
Mhm.
you just think your brand should be everywhere. And that's a lot for distributors to juggle. Like, there's hundreds of meetings. Like, I want my brand to do this. I want my brand to do that. And at the end of the day, like, my team, like, we go out, we present it, we tell the story, we get it out there, but it has to pull, right? And there's so many things affecting that now across the country, and price points are one of those. And you just have a lot of people exhausted um, on older brands, and they don't want to spend $70 or $80 on it anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I like the approach that you guys take, and especially almost in essence becoming that partner with your suppliers, right, and understanding the way that you can position yourselves better to help them. I think that's the most important thing in
Well,
business.
I say to them, like, I would be stupid not to want to sell a lot of your stuff. Like, that would be like everything. It's as important to me as it is to you. I mean, I know it's your brand, but like, this is our company, and but we have. I mean, we have over 75 different suppliers. I mean, we probably have 1,000 different SKUs in our portfolio. That's a lot for one rep to like wrap their head around and speak about wine and speak about spirits, because wine is very entrenched and detailed, and it's intimidating. Like, you go to buy wine nowadays, and it's like,
Yeah,
it's overwhelming, and price points are all over the place, and it's hard to sell those wines. Like, you got to learn so much about them. So, like, there's such an education piece to this too, and like, as I tell like everybody in my team, it's like, you got to be invested in yourself, like, personally and professionally. So if you're not like, if this is what you want to do, then like, you really got to own it, and like, and study it, and hone that craft. And we spend a lot of time on education here. Like, I don't want my team just to think they're like a number, like, go out and sell and just sell. Like, we do trainings every month with our team. Like, I need them to be better. I want them to be better. And if there's an opportunity that I can't offer them here, but I got that to that place and they leave, like, I kind of get excited and sad at the same time when that happens. Because I was like, wow, you grew here and you outgrew what I can actually give you. And that's why I love seeing the people that work for me at the other companies and see how successful they've become when they never had sales experience when I first hired them. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely think that being a part of people's growth is probably one of the most rewarding aspects of being in that executive position, seeing people come in and seeing and being able to nurture that talent. I think that that's great and help them achieve bigger goals in their career. I think that there's no better feeling than that. Uh,
Yeah,
I know. Go ahead.
I get a lot of like I'll get like, I keep in touch with most of my everybody working for me, but like I get so many like, hey, can you write me an offer letter? Or can you write me a recommendation? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, but I haven't talked to you in like 2 years. We were really like, but then I see what jobs they're applying for, and I was like, wow, you're ready for this job. So like that excites me, and it excites me more when they get it. And I always try to go out like. There's people that worked for me in the past, and I try to get them to move here and come work for me again because it just worked. And finding that person that like you really trust, and that's hard nowadays, that's going to stay with you. um,
Definitely.
it's hard hiring a person now because like they just want to move on. And then there's so much risk for an employer at this time.
Yeah. There's definitely less loyalty nowadays. We'll say, but
Sure.
it is what it is. We're obviously a technology company over here, and we're always trying to get opinions on kind of some of the moving parts of technology in the industry. And I know you're on the sales and operational side of things, but I'm curious to get your take on kind of some of the challenges that you see inside of the industry when it comes to technology within the beverage industry.
So I mean, obviously it's a lot of numbers driven, right? We use a program called Encompass. And there's different platforms out there. But we're all numbers, right? Like how many accounts are we in? How many accounts are we not? That's how we dictate our business. That's how we do our planning meetings with our suppliers. Our suppliers have full access to their numbers here. So they're not just always bunched. So they always have an eye on where their business is. We have an eye on where our business is. And we're always trying to get better with that. I would say we put more processes in the last 5 months than probably the last 3 years here, because we were outgrown, like we were just outpacing kind of where we were, and we're kind of playing catch up from that standpoint, because we just didn't have like the forms and the processes. We were doing stuff a little too old school, um, and now we feel like we're in a better place where we control the technology within Encompass because we can do so much within it. And my reps could go on and like literally look at 4 years of sales in their accounts, and they could plan their business that way. There's so many layers to it. And nowadays, a lot of the bigger distributors, they don't even go into stores. Like you order through their portal. You've kind of taken out that, face to face kind of sales, which I don't particularly think retailers love. They like the rep being in there and punching the order and having the conversations. But we're getting to a place from a technology standpoint where you're almost, eliminating having to even go to that store. Um,
Yeah.
there's definitely some positives to that. I think there's a lot of negatives. Um, it definitely cuts back on your staff. Like you don't need as many people out there.
Mhm.
But customers have to embrace that, and I think less are embracing that, and they still want that person in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as we kind of go more towards remote and go towards, AI that kind of comes into the workforce, I do think people are going to value more of that personal touch, right? Just a tad more, but it is where everything is moving, right? Everything is moving in that direction. So
It
it's kind
is.
of,
I mean, and we have two. So we have two companies. We have Momentum, which is our distributor, but we have MMK Logistics, which we have in all three of our warehouses. Which that really has made us super efficient. So, like in our warehouse here, we have the traditional racks. Orders get punched by our reps. They're in by 5. Then they go into the system. Then we start routing. But then, like all of our picking machines are laser guided through there. They get the orders, and it literally guides them through, picks that order for that customer, puts it on there. It just has made us so more efficient where, if we have 2,000 cases going on a night, that used to take us till like 6 in the morning to pick. Now they're out of there by 12 or 1 in the morning. and the accuracy is obviously really, really good. So we're kind of evolving that, that as a mid-tier distributor. I think a lot of the bigger distributors have done that for a while. But as much technology is outside of our warehouse, there's just as much inside of in our warehouse, and both have to kind of work at the same speed.
Definitely, definitely. On the operational standpoint, where is what are some of the major challenges that you see on an operating kind of a distributor, and what you found over the years to kind of really help you overcome some of those common challenges that you often run into?
I mean, clearly there's human error. There's
Yeah.
just having the people, like, having people in the warehouse and having the right people. That's probably the toughest position to hire, because they move on. So like, that's not their career. They're kind of there for a short stay once they get to know it. So like, we're constantly like hiring and teaching new people. Um, and then, some
Mhm.
people stay, some people go. But we find like our biggest challenge is what it looks like once we leave the warehouse. The routing is so challenging and difficult, especially for us here in Colorado with the mountains. We can have a huge snow day, trucks can't go up to the mountains, and then we're a day behind, and we literally kind of have to regroup, reroute everything to make sure we get the orders to the accounts that week, and that doesn't happen all the time. You kind of have to have perfect harmony when the reps are, going out during the day, punching their orders. We're no different than any distributor. Like, orders got to be in at 5, and once that happens, then it goes to a routing system, then it goes to the pick system. And it's like all those things have to happen in the accurate order, or your whole delivery day is affected the next day. And that's where our new picking system, one, saves time, gives us almost 100% accuracy. There's still obviously some human error in there, but on a given night, we have 2,000 cases being picked, from a lot of, from 400, 500 different SKUs. Some are bottle picks, so there's just a lot of things like that technology is not going to just give you 100% pick. Like that picker needs to be paying attention. They need, the way our system works, it kind of just swerves you through there, and it really does guide you to do that pick. But then once that happens, like, then you're loading the trucks and then you're routing. And then anything within that process can really mess your whole order up. And then, you lose sales, and, it's kind of the old adage is you never get sales back. So if we have an order messed up, or we have a truck that didn't go out, in Colorado is, we're notorious for this. Like, when it snows here, they shut the mountains down and we lose a whole day.
Yeah.
And to make up a whole day of delivery is challenging because you're moving on to the next day. So every day brings a bunch of different challenges. But now in the days with the reps have their handhelds, they're in Encompass. They see everything real time. We see sales real time. I mean, I could see anytime my rep punches an order, I could see it. I could see what they punched. It's not Big Brother. I don't have GPS on my team, but it's nice to see kind of.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. They would fight that. But it's nice just to see like real time where we're at in sales, and with that too, like technology, it creates competitiveness, right? Because all my reps can see how much they're selling. You don't want to be that rep on the bottom. So it's a very transparent platform within Compass, which I love. And again, if you're not competitive, you shouldn't be in sales anyway. But even at the end of the day, like, we could run a quick report. What do we sell? How much do we sell? The profitability of what we sold. I think it's hard to function. I don't think you could function within a distributor without a really good platform like we use in Compass.
Yeah, obviously you do a couple of things, Shane. You wear a couple of different hats, and from that, you obviously have got a lot of experience over the years. And so one of the questions that I always like to ask, in your opinion, what type of mindset is really needed to be a successful VP of sales? I know you're also the general manager, but in your opinion, what type of traits do you really have to adopt?
I don't know. I've read a couple good books. I think it was in Good to Great where I heard it, and I've seen it real time just because, Joe, who was my partner, but he was always the majority owner of the company. that the failing companies of a CEO doesn't really have anybody over them. And when you don't have someone over you or someone on the same level that can tell you like that's a stupid idea, you make bad decisions. And I learned that over 3 companies. Like I've made some bad decisions, some good ones. So for me, like I'm a very transparent person. I'm transparent with my team. And I just think that's important because if you don't have that openness to where like, someone's like, that's not a good idea. And I'm okay, whoever tells me that, and I'll steal any good idea as well. So I think you got to have that kind of moral, like that personal compass of like, am I doing this for myself? Or am I doing this for the company? And that's where I've seen companies just struggle because it's a CEO's way. It's a CEO's way. And I'm more like, hey, what can we do better? And I'm always doing temperature checks with my team. Culture is a real thing within a company. Like it could kill you, it could propel you. Like, I'm always, our Friday meetings, I'm always trying to give, some sort of motivational speech. I'm not trying to be on a soapbox all the time, but, I think people need to know you care. And they need to know you care, like not in a fake way. Like when I always ask the opinion of someone on my team, even if I already know the direction I want to take something. I think you asking them makes them feel a little more worth like, all right. And I don't do it like I really do care. Like I'm not just asking you to check a box. Because I've had people give me great ideas that I missed. So I really pay attention to that. And I do think I learned that just from starting 3 companies. Because so many things go wrong. Um, you know, everybody wants to start these companies and they think it's easy. And like, I would say like stick a knife in your leg, twist it, and then twist it again, because that will be less painful than starting a company.
Yeah.
And then just finding the right people it's hard. When you're interviewing someone, and I think when I see resumes like anybody probably, and you see like 10 different jobs within 3 years, I mean, those people are flight risks. It's sometimes nice to see someone that was in a job for 10 years. And I think nowadays people think like jump, 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 jump. Well, I've done it and I've seen it and I've made decisions based on money. And I'll never do that again. And I really try to tell that to like my team. Like there's problems at every company, right? Like I'll never forget I interviewed someone and he worked at Whole Foods, and Whole Foods at this time was like best company to work for like year after year after year. And I'm like, why do you want to leave Whole Foods? And he's like, it sucks. And I was like, Whole Food, you walk in Whole Foods, you feel like refreshed, everything smells good, like everything's perfect. Sunshine and rainbows. And that's just not the case. And like we're gonna have our problems, and I'm very transparent with my team on our problems. And I hate when people leave, and I never try to talk anybody into staying. But I think that's the biggest challenge for companies nowadays, like finding the right people, getting the right people on the bus, but more importantly, get them in the right seats. Because I think so many people get put into jobs that they're not passionate about, and then they just lose the desire to stay there.
Yeah. I think there's great points, and I definitely can see that across different leaders. When I look at them, the most successful are usually the people that, first of all, lead by example, the people that are willing to take input from people even below them, right? And not to think that you're above them just because you hold a position that obviously is a higher rank. You still value their opinion, and like you said, it breeds the culture within the company, because all it takes is a couple of instances to really start to kill that culture, and then to kill the motivation, and to really become a poison inside the company itself. So it's important you keep the morale high. And I love that you touched on how that you give those motivational speeches, like you got to give those Al Pacino any given Sunday type of speeches every now and then to really start to build that sense of community within the workforce, and to really drive things forward. So I love your take on that. I did want to know what the vision was for the next 12 months. I never like to ask 5 to 10 year plans because it's a little bit far out. But in the next 12 months, what is it the vision for yourself and the company?
Survive, right? I think it's hard, like that 5-year plan. Like I'm glad you said 12 months, because that 5-year plan is so unpredictable. And I think when you plan that far ahead, a lot of times you're just disappointed. I'm more of a like manage on the minute, manage on the day and run your business on the day. Um, you know, a lot of our stuff, we have a vision for Momentum. All of our brands have a vision for their brand, and you're really trying to like just have the good synergies between both. And you got to keep your suppliers happy because there's other places to go. You're tied to numbers. So like, we all have a number. We have a number out there here. We have one in Illinois and Wisconsin. For us, what we did this year is like we put an achievable number. It's reachable. I think we could reach over it. A lot of times I think these companies put these huge unrealistic goals. And when you do that, you go broke or you go out of business because you're building everything around that, right? So this is the first, since I've been here, like where I feel like everybody's bought into like what our number is, how we're going to get there. Clearly the environment within Colorado with what's going on here is challenging with money and people, customers being able to pay us. But we're navigating through that. So really, I guess, it's survive, keep the team I have. I feel like I got the right people this year. I didn't feel like I had that last year. I'm going into my, 2 years here. And it's kind of like that, GM of a football team, like, you inherit a team and then, or you get to draft your team. Like, I really feel like this is finally like the team I put together, move some people around. But again, GMs get fired if the team doesn't perform. And I feel super comfortable with who we got. I think they're passionate. I think they, enjoy the job and they bought into what we're doing. But still, I got to manage, their personal feelings every day because like sales is hard. They get beat up. They have a horrible day. This sucks. I don't want to work. I don't want to do this anymore. But any job is like that. So sometimes I feel like a camp counselor sometimes just trying to talk my, team off the ledge once in a while. So yeah, I feel good. Again, we're in spirits, we're in wine. People are not going to stop drinking. Maybe they're drinking a little less. There's still a great innovation coming out. And there's a lot of brands, we say no to a lot of brands. They just don't fit into what we're trying to do. They made for other brands. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's a relationship. And if we can't manage that with our suppliers, then, we're no good as a distributor. So it's a tough balance every day with our suppliers.
Yeah. No, I love the vision. I think it's important to have those not unattainable goals, right? But those realistic goals that you can actually achieve and that people can get behind and move as an organization together, right? And I think that's the biggest point is getting people involved in the organizational goals as well and having them be a part of it. I think that's huge.
And our owner, like he loves this business. It's been in his family's blood. Like he loves doing it. And I don't think he would do anything different. And I think he brings in people that have, the same passion for that. Again, it's that 1 degree separation. Like him and I talk 4 or 5 times a day. We get ourselves on the same page. We run, our business is a little different than Illinois and Wisconsin, but at the end of the day, we're the same company. And, we've survived, this is our 5th year here in Colorado. I think Illinois is going on their 12th year. And that's hard to compete with the big guys, right? There's always 2, right? There's Walmart, there's Target, there's Coke, there's Pepsi, there's Red Bull, there's Monster. So, and there's always been the 3 big distributors in the country, and now there's starting to be these small ones. But we got to do it better and faster with less people and less resources.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you guys. I think you guys got a cool mission going on, and I love the passion behind the company. And I love the way that you speak with vigor, and it definitely motivates me. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, Shane. It was great. It was great getting the chance to speak to you and loved all the nuggets of wisdom you dropped throughout the podcast as well. If people are listening to this and they want to, reach you, they want either you or your team, what are the best ways usually to go about that?
Yeah, I could give my email out. I'm totally fine with that if you want.
Cool. Yeah, I can always just include it in the description. I'll put your email. Are you on LinkedIn as well?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn too. Yeah, I'm kind of an open book. I help some companies that are starting out because I've done it. And I know how hard it is. And, typically I'll tell you don't do it before I tell you do it. Because I think it is that hard. But yeah, free to share my information. I'd love to talk to anybody about what they're trying to do in the business.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, make sure to include that in the description. Thanks again, Shane. And thank you guys. If you did make it all the way to the end, we do appreciate it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more related content. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Shane. Take care.
Keep drinking.